And for more on this, we're joined by Cormac Smith, former advisor to Ukraine's foreign minister. Cormac, you obviously, are well versed in the politics of the area. What's your view on what Russia are actually doing here? Obviously, they're amassing the troops, but is that with a view to invasion, or is this brinksmanship to try and, I suppose, force the hand of Ukraine to say they won't join NATO?
I think it's brinksmanship. What we need to understand, that very few people in the West really understand the Russian concept around hybrid war. Now, Russia has been waging a hybrid war, not only against Ukraine for the last 8 years, but indeed against the West. And hybrid war is about using a mixture of, at the top of the scale, conventional violence, but cyber attacks, assassination attempts like we saw we had on British soil in Salisbury in 2018. Indeed, I worked very closely with the British government on that. And disinformation spewed out from vomitoriums like RT, Russia Today, and Sputnik, and their troll farms with thousands of keyboard jockeys in Moscow and St. Petersburg, all to sow confusion and division in the West. What's really interesting at the moment is the difference between Kyiv and the Western allies as to when an invasion is imminent. If we listen to the Americans, and it's really worrying, the invasion is going to happen tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah, Wednesday is the date that has been put on it. I was speaking to people in Kyiv over the weekend. In fact, I've changed my stance on this very significantly over the last 3 or 4 days. So I speak to people in Kyiv most days. In Kyiv, they're saying, no, it's not imminent. Now, partly that's because they want to calm their people down and they want to calm the markets down. Mm-hmm. Putin has already achieved a lot of his aims without firing a shot. What Putin wants to do, what we must understand, what Putin wants to do is cripple and retard Ukraine. He has said the breakup of the Soviet Union was the greatest geopolitical disaster of the 20th century. Ukraine was the jewel in the crown. He wants it back. He wants it back in the Russian orbit, and he wants it back for the wealth that it contains. He's not going to have it back. 92% of Ukrainian people in a poll in a referendum in 1991 voted for independence. If anything, and especially since Maidan, where the greatest gift Putin has given to the Ukrainian people has been nationalism. The country has moved further and further
towards
to the West.
Yeah.
In particular.
And Cormac, if that's the great conflict there, that Putin, really resents, I suppose, the loss of the USSR, that the empire, but if, particularly the loss of Ukraine, the jewel, as you say, if that's the thing, and if the Ukrainian people believe in their own sovereignty and they want to move more towards the West, they want to be, a democratic nation, and, corruption, etc., notwithstanding, and they want, I suppose, possibly to be a member of NATO and all that, where are we going with this? Because how do we reconcile those two positions?
What matters here is the democratic right of the Ukrainian people. And I've got a good friend in Kiev called Katerina. I've also got a lifelong friend in Dublin called Derval. And Derval in Dublin has the same right to live in freedom as Katerina in Kiev. Where we go with this, we in Ireland in particular should understand, we're only 100 years old. Yeah. We know the growing pains that we had over the first 60, 70 years in the state. God knows we're still going through them. When I lived in Ukraine, I started to see so many similarities between Irish history and culture and Ukrainian history and culture. They are only 30 years old. Now, if they had been left on their own for 30 years to get their act together and to deal with corruption and to democratize and everything else, it'd be one thing. But they've had the boot. They've had the Russian boot on their throat, in particular for the last 8 years, killing 15,000 of their people, dislodging 2 million from their homes.
It's
really tough for them.
Look, thank you very much for all that insight this morning. We may come back to you again on this. Thank you. Indeed, that is Cormac Smith, our former advisor to Ukraine's foreign minister.